Live and good morning to everyone on this Sunday morning. Stephanie, and a wonderful good morning to you. We are in the countdown into Ascension Day. Once you go post Easter, you got 40 days until it is the day that your Savior leaves the earth, only to now count to the days to his return. So we always count 40 days after the end of Easter. And I think it was a wonderful Easter. How are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. And I should say, a lot of people have forgotten about Easter already. Very rare do people remember the 40 days you're talking about, Munyumba. People have
Yeah.
forgotten and they're looking for money now.
After they finished their money on Easter, now they are praying for miracles again. After you were supposed to be celebrating a miracle, you went and celebrated something else, and now you're looking
Yeah.
for money again. This is the problem. But anyway, Stephanie, let's not punish the people for their choices. But today we are on God's Economy. Welcome everyone to God's Economy, the intersection between your faith, your focus, and your finance, where we help you try and make sense of your money decisions and your money journey. And this year, Stephanie, we have been going on the money skills. We've been talking about the 4 money skills, and we've been talking about make money, manage money, multiply money, maintain money. And so far, we're currently on the manage money part. So we've really thrust ourselves into making money. We talked about discovering which axe is your one you want. We talked about sharpening your axe. We talked about multiplying your battalion of axes so that you can maximize your make money potential. But with the gift of making money comes the responsibility to manage money. Now, I know that whenever there's something such as this is kind of a blend between a content with it between content, religious content, and advisory services or
Mm.
advisory work. I do just wanted to make something very clear to as many people as possible. One of the things I recognize, Stephanie, is as much as we are throwing a lot of content out there, deeply researched content, I'm not fooled enough to understand that people are not going to take advice, Stephanie, until they need it. Until they recognize actually they need it and they actively seek it. I'm going to read a Bible verse for you. Something that I saw from that I was actually thinking about this morning. This is Matthew 7:7. It's just out of the bit of the focus, but it says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open. For everyone who asks receives, everyone who seeks finds, everyone who knocks, then the door is open." One thing I've actually found in many years of working in this field, Stephanie, is that people will only be receptive. This kind of thing makes you think about, this verse is always thought about as you can only get things if you actively look for them. Actually, most of what you're looking for is already available to you. You are only receptive to it when you're looking for it. Okay. Do you know why Google is the number one search and is the number one digital advertising platform and one of the most influential things in your life? Do you know why?
Mm.
It's because Google does something called point of intent advertising. Google only gives you adverts when you have searched for something. You only find out things from Google when you go in there and you search, right? So it seems only God and Google have understood that people are most influenced, are most easily influenced and easily advised when they are in pursuit, when they're in active pursuit. So it's called point of intention. So I know that right now, what we're doing on this show is we're sowing seeds. When the time of point of intention comes, people will then remember and recall these episodes or remember and recall these things and they'll put them into action. Because I've seen a lot of people who are in the advisory space and everything saying, yeah, but you're not acting on things. They get very frustrated that people
Mm.
are
Mm.
listening to content and not acting it. It's because content is given to them without them asking. They're enjoying it, but they didn't ask for it. Okay. When their life situation calls upon it, they will act on it. So, most people who are content creators, be patient. When people's lives call for the things that you are making, they will act on them. but constantly and patiently put out the content. And once they've acted on enough of your content, they will then preemptively implement these things without ever having to go through circumstances. But that is how life works first. People must first go to situations where they must pursue. Today we're going to talk about budgeting. People who need who if a person is talking about their money problems, Stephanie, and you tell them, well, this is how you should budget, they're gonna nod their heads politely and tell you, nice, great, I'll put that into work. They're not gonna do it. Okay. But if a friend comes to you, Stephanie, and says, how does a person budget? Can you show me? They're most likely gonna implement what you asked them. If a person actually asks you something and then you offer them advice based on what they've asked you, okay? So not even just, and that's just a friend. Now I'm talking about even as an advisor. That's the reason why you charge for things. That's the reason why you wait for people to come and book with you, because they must come of their own recognition of their money needs, okay? Once they come with their own recognition, then they will open up. But we provide this content as what we call seeds in the soil. I know that you may not act on this today. To everybody who's listening, you're not likely to. In fact, 99% of you are not going to act on it today. You're not going to act on it anytime soon, actually. In fact, you're just going to consume it and it's going to sit in the back of your mind. But there will come a time in your life when you will need this. And it's good to have in the back of your mind that you can recall from. At least you'll know it's sitting there and lingering there. So that's why I say to people, yes, people must implement the things that you're talking about, and they'll say it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I know that a lot of people feel very hurt because that then hits at their ego when you say what you people go out saying doesn't work because we put it into action. No, the people who really want to put it into action are at the point of intent. They're most likely going to do it. Now, in today's conversation, Stephanie, we're going to be talking about budgeting, and this is going to be a 3-part series on budgeting. So I'm going to give you the first principles. I'm going to give you something called a budget template, which is what is advised for somebody who wants to go into the wealth building process. So remember, just as a quick recap, and this is basically in today's session, we're going to talk a lot about budgeting. And what we're going to talk about here is that introduction to budgeting and 4 basic principles that we're going to open up at the beginning, biblical principles about how to implement and manage your budget. But just as a recap, remember, we have 4 money skills that we have been working with. The first skill is to make money. Everything starts by the ability to actually generate a living and to make money. And the next one is to manage money. So once you've made money, you have the responsibility to manage money. Making money is a gift from God. It's your talent and it's your opportunities put together. Okay, your abilities that are God-given and that you sharpened and you worked on. So God has given you this axe. You have actively sharpened it. You've really worked on it. Okay, and then you've been able to multiply it. Then God has also given you opportunities, okay, to then exercise trees with which to cut that axe, to use an axe. An axe is no good, Stephanie, if it has no trees to cut. Okay, God then provides you with trees, opportunities that you can go and cut the axe on. So this is why sharpening your axe and then multiplying your battalion of axes allows you to collect a lot more trees, a lot more wood as possible. So the first skill that determines your economic journey is your ability to make money. Without an income, your conversations about money are nothing but academia. That is the truth. It's nothing but academics. But it becomes real when you're actually making it, when you're actually generating an income, when you've got customers or you've got business or you've got a job. That's when your real money story kicks in. So the second skill now is, what do you do when you found money? Okay, when you've made money, what do you do with it? You manage it, you multiply it, and you maintain it. So the first skill you must have with money that you've made is now to manage it. And we talked a lot last week about self-control. The week before, we talked about self-control and we talked about emotional spending. Last week, we talked about the traps of where we are, our emotional dependency on things, and that Jesus came to free us from that so that we can look to things that are more eternal and use things. Learn to use things, not be used and controlled by things. So today we're going to actually talk about now the actual mechanical part of budgeting. So this is something that we call an investor's exact order of budgeting and cash flow. So this is what people set out for me when they ask me, okay, Munyumba, it's wonderful. I know now. Tell me how I'm supposed to put my money together. So this is the order of operations that I look at, that a person. So it's like a script. Now, a lot of people say, well, things are, everything is relative. It's up to you and how you feel. Here's my view on certain things. When you're at the beginning of a journey, take instructions. At the beginning of a journey, okay? When you're starting something, find a template, find a script, and just follow it. Later on, when you are ready, budgeting is like any other skill. So remember last time I talked about the 4 layers of skills, that you start as a trainee, then you become an apprentice, then you become a journeyman, then you become a master. You have to do the same thing with budgeting. At the beginning, follow an order of operations. Okay? Learn the mechanics of it, how often to do it, what to do. Learn from just following something. Then you start learning guidelines and principles. Then you start learning some general environmental factors. Then you start following your own ways. That's when you've mastered something. So you have to be very careful about trying to run into mastery very early. But this is basically how it goes. And this is a script I give to people. 1, you receive your income and your inflow. So the first thing comes is that you work for your money. Okay, you've done something. At the top, it's called work. Then the next thing you do is you pay your taxes, statutories, and tithes, or what I call your taxes and tithes. You must pay those, and I'll explain why. The third one is to deduct essential savings and invest. Okay, so you really want to put aside your wealth and retirement, your college for your children. You always want to make sure that you're saving more for your later wealth estate, which is what's going to be transferable to your children, than you're doing for your children's education, for example. A lot of people do it the other way around. Then you spend on your essentials, and you also acquire insurance, because the key driver behind you making your money was so that you can eat, so that you can live, so that you can enjoy, you can actually have things to live and not worry about being able to live. Okay, so your 4 walls, which are your utilities, your housing, your transport, your clothing, in that order, by the way. And then basic insurance, being able to insure your life, being able to insure your health, because you don't know when these things happen. If you go through disability, you make your money mainly because of your abilities. There's an ability you utilize to make your money, which can then impede your ability to make money if you don't have that ability. Okay, no matter how subtle it is. So disability insurance is important, funeral insurance, and if you own property or vehicles, those are important to insure as well, because you probably utilize them in your day-to-day living. Your essential cash allocation, stuff as your personal wealth, your personal savings, cash savings, and any emergency health savings. Then you make long-term low-interest loan deductions. Then after that, you then start to save for things like, are you maintaining property, replacing it? If you look at annual obligations, maybe you've got annual bills, there are birthdays you want to save up for, end of year Christmas, medium-term targets such as your future big purchases, like you want to buy land, maybe you want to buy a car, big purchases you're looking for. And then finally, you can just spend whatever you want. This is the have fun part. We call it waste. So there's work, wealth, and waste. That's kind of the flow that money goes through when you're budgeting. So this is an initial one that you can utilize. If you're looking for one, this is an initial one you can utilize, and you follow a script. Follow it from the beginning, and once you're done, once you get used to following a script multiple times, it's like an actor for a play or a movie. Have you ever done theater before, Stephanie?
Mm-hmm.
So you notice that at first, when you're practicing that play, you're reading the script, right? But have you noticed eventually you're going to get used to that script, and then you're going to stop reading it? You know the lines off by heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then have you noticed that once people know the lines off by heart, have you noticed how they start acting more freely? They start expressing better. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
That is how skills work. If you're trying to remember stuff while trying to express, you're hurting the process. Those are 2 parts of your brain trying to work at the same time, and it's confusing to you. But if you are going to say, right, let me first learn the process, let me just follow it, even if I don't agree with it totally or whatever, let me just follow it first. Then once I've gotten used to it, then I can start customizing it, making it my own, flourishing it, those kind of things. And this is the problem a lot of people have. They try to customize things like budgeting too early. Well, here's the reality. You need a budget because you're bad with money. Are you sure you want to start putting your own personal principles into it yet? You are bad with money, as in that's the reality of most people. That's all of us, actually. We're bad with it. Without a budget, we're bad with money. Okay, so our personal preferences and principles may not be the best thing for us yet because they're destructive. Okay, so first thing you want to do is just follow a budget. Okay, then after that, you then want to implement, then you can start customizing it. You can start switching around orders once you have proven yourself to be proficient with it. Okay, so that's
Now,
something I just want. Yeah.
just before you continue, I think I want to ask you how long should it take? What are the signs that somebody has now become efficient with it, that they now know it? And because I know that a lot of people don't really like to, do something for the longest time possible. So when do you know you're ready? What are the signs?
Signs one are that you do it instinctively and automatically. That's the first sign. So that's why I said think about it like a school play. Okay. What are the signs, Stephanie, that you're ready to start customizing a role and suggesting to the director of a play that I think we should add this line in. You know, when the actor really knows, they start to tell the director, you know what, I think we should add this line in, or I think we should add that line in. The actor is able to do that when they're able to execute this script that was in front of them very well to the point where they're proving to the director they can better it. At the beginning of your budgeting cycle, start with somebody who is knowledgeable with it to guide you through it. They will see the steps inside of you. Okay. So maybe also do it under somebody who can guide you through the process, whether it's a friend, whether it's a mentor, whether it's an advisor, whatever. Once you've done something multiple times, now multiple times usually, Stephanie, if you've done something for at least 6 months continuously, you tend to automate it. Okay. In fact, let me just be honest with you. The habit hardwiring of your brain, okay, usually requires 9 months of something. And now I know people say, well, and some habits are 21 days for you to form and so forth. Yeah,
Exactly,
sure.
exactly.
21 days to form a habit is for something that's easy to do. In fact, let me just be honest with you, bad habits are easily formed in 21 days, actually. Bad habits are actually the ones that are easily formed. And the reason is bad habits have pleasure before pain. Okay. You eat sugar now, you get diabetes later. All right. You eat badly now, you gain weight later. All right. You take alcohol now, you have fun, but you have a hangover tomorrow. You don't get a hangover before you drink your alcohol. You get a hangover after you've enjoyed your alcohol. So the reality about life is the bad habits form early because they're pleasurable. So things that are pleasurable up front form early. Things that are difficult at the beginning but pleasurable later, they form after days. So good habits take you about 9 months to form. Bad habits take you very quickly to form. It's very easy to get to fall into a bad habit. Very, very easy to fall into a bad habit because the pleasure is there. And as a human being, you are wired to pursue pleasure before pain. Okay, you're wired to pursue pleasure and you're wired to avert pain. So you kind of have to go against your nature a little bit. So if you want to figure this out, I'll tell you one thing: budget for a year, live by it. Okay, pick a budget, live by it, stick to it for a year. About 9 months in, you're going to see yourself automatically doing it. The first few months are going to be painful as ever. Okay, but about 9 months in, you're going to start finding yourself getting used to it. It's like sticking to a diet, it's like sticking to anything. Okay, it takes about 9 months of something for it to now become your nature, or for at least it to start becoming your nature. That's why, look, 9 months is a very powerful number. Maybe that's the same number as childbirth. You know, it's the same principle. But 9 months is what it takes for a person to really hardwire their brain into something. So give yourself about 9 months of budgeting, of following a specific budget, and then constantly looking at it. Have it designed. So this one is kind of a basic one that I've looked at, had designed. Now, just to go through some basic principles of budgeting for people. And this just should guide you from the beginning. Here's an introduction to where it's important. Plan your money before you act on it. This is Luke 14:28. Jesus says, but do not begin until you count the costs. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the costs to see if they have enough money to finish it? So your financial journey, your budget reflects your financial plan. One of the things that makes it very difficult for people to actually budget, Stephanie, comes down to the fact that there's no financial plan in place. So therefore, it just feels like they're sticking to this thing And this is what makes those first 9 months difficult. They're sticking to
Mhm.
this thing that's being forced on them. Okay. And people have a natural inclination to resist force. If I force you to do something, your natural instinct is to resist it. Okay. So, how do we avoid a budget feeling forced when we connect it
Mhm.
to a desire? It must be connected. So, if I tell you, Stephanie, you're going to budget like this, and this, because at the end of it, this is the lifestyle you're going to be able to have. Okay. So if
Mm.
you look at it, then you look at your budget, and there's two things this thing looks at. Do you have the
Mm.
adequate resources to meet that target and meet that goal? Okay. So the first thing you want to do is you want to set a financial plan in place. And once you've set a financial plan in place, the budget is the execution that you're going to utilize. It tells you how much to save, where to save it, how much to spend, how much you should be earning consistently so that you can put away enough, invest enough, so that you can go to the stage of money multiplication and money maintenance so that you're able to get to that wealth goal. Okay, that's what you need to look at. And it asks the question before you get started, do you have enough to reach there? So that's what a financial plan simply is. So a financial plan is this, Stephanie, and there's a one-page version of it. What wealth goal, what lifestyle would you like? Okay. And a lifestyle often, remember we talked about the 4 fears. We said you don't want to be afraid of where you're going to eat. You don't want to ask questions, or you don't want to be uncertain about where your next meal is going to come from. You don't want to be uncertain about the welfare of your loved ones. You don't want to have that certainty of what you're uncertain about now at risk. But then you want the freedom to utilize your time for what you find meaningful. Those are the 4 things that people are looking for. They're looking to escape fears and now push for freedoms. Now, that's the lifestyle most people want. Whenever they're looking for financial freedom, the definition is always freedom from worrying about your needs and wants, worrying about your loved ones, and having that secured while having the freedom to utilize your time as you see fit. That is a lifestyle almost anybody resonates with. When they hear those words that, okay, so I can eat, I can sleep, I can move around, I can wear clothes, and I don't have to worry. I don't have to work, nor do I have to worry. That appeals to almost everyone. And that's
Mhm.
why building a financial asset speaks to them. So that's the reason why they do that. That's the reason why people build flats so that they can collect rent instead of reporting to work. Okay. And therefore, and in order to meet their needs, they can, if they want to sleep in, they have the choice to sleep in. If they're going to be on break for 3 months, they have the choice to do that. Okay. So they want the choice. They don't want to be at a must situation. So that is the lifestyle. Now, when you've connected your budget and you've also stated a time and an amount that you need to be saving. So I break a budget down into something I call a task, a plan into something called a task. Whenever you have a goal, break it into a task. And a task is an acronym that stands for so target amount, and target time. That's the T. A stands for allocation. Where am I supposed to be putting money? S stands for savings rate. And K stands for kinetic energy. What is pushing me to get there? Okay. So, what goal, what desire, what deep, emotionally meaningful desire is pushing me? That's why vision boards can be important because they stimulate that desire. Okay. So, when you have those 4 points, a target, time, and an amount, an allocation of where you're supposed to be putting your money so you know the how, a savings rate of how much you're supposed to be putting out of your budget, and then a kinetic energy, your whole budget now can start becoming oriented towards action. Okay, and you've got this force behind it. It's wonderful to have smart goals, but break your goals into a task because that's your execution, and you just keep executing that, and you execute it until you've automated it. And automation of habitual behavior takes about 9 months. So you then translate that task or those tasks. Now, one is your retirement. The other one maybe is your child's savings, your child's college education, all those things. Then you factor them in and you look at what are your needs as well. And once you've got this, you've now gotten a plan for a budget that means something to you. So effectively, the first thing you must do is count the costs for where you want to get to, and the budget will then speak to that. Okay, so that's the first step we should all look at. The next thing, Stephanie, that we quickly have to look at is where does money come from? Okay, whenever people are budgeting, we write phantom budgets, and we've been talking about this for 4 weeks. Money comes from work. Okay,
Mhm.
People want to tell themselves money comes from, no, if I just own this, if I just invest in this, if I lend listen, as long as you're not working, you're not going to make money. You might get lucky once or twice, but if you're not working, you're not going to make money. Working is delivering on a need for somebody, whether it's an employer, whether it's a client, but you better deliver on someone's need. Okay, that is work. So here are some statements in the Bible that food demands work. Genesis 3:19, by the sweat of your brow you will eat food. Okay, that is God. Joshua 5:11-12, the day after the Passover, that very day they ate some of the produce of the land, the unleavened bread and the roasted grains. The manna stopped that day after. They ate the food from the land, and they no longer and there was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. So never again did the children of Israel ever receive food. That was for a time in the desert. It was for just a moment. But the lifestyle was they had to work to produce their food. Okay. And finally, here is that when you eat the labor of your hands, you shall be happy and it shall be well with you. That is from the book of Psalms 128. So that already tells you that you must connect consumption with production. For you to be able to consume, for you to be able to have money that you can use, Stephanie, you must make it somewhere. So the first step that you must get into your mind of your budget, the first question you must ask is, where do I make money from and how much? Because there's a difference, and I thank my friend Liapambewe for this one. A spending plan is how much money you're spending. A lot of you people write spending plans. And I want someone to write that in the comment section. A spending plan is a tracking of how much you're spending. A budget is your revenue, spending, and your savings. So it's a plan for all three of these. That's why when the government writes out a national budget, they include tax revenue, they include debt, they include their spending. Okay? Because a spending plan is just when you're saying, okay, this is how much I'm spending and I'm tracking it. A budget actually encompasses how much money are you making and what is your plan to improve that. Are you going to invest in your education? That's part of an expenditure so that later on you can increase your revenue. Okay? So what parts of your budget are also geared towards revenue increase, revenue protection? Things like disability insurance, by the way, are called revenue protection. Okay, if you utilize an asset in some way, shape, or form to make money with, that's revenue protection. So I want you to think about this very carefully. So an asset, the purpose of your first step of budgeting is to establish your revenue. Then you look at how much you need to spend, and then you flow it into assets. Okay, savings. I'm going to talk about breaking a budget into savings pools. That's another day. So the second thing I want you to get into your mind is taxes and tithes. Sorry, I've misspelled that, but taxes and tithes come first. Okay. Now, taxes and tithes come first simply means here's it is in Proverbs: honor the Lord your God with your wealth, with your wealth and with the first fruits of your produce. Okay. Now, whenever you make money, I'll tell you the first thing you should be doing is paying your taxes and tithes. And why? Especially if you're religious, is that, and tithes, by the way, people, is just your 10%. By the way, there's a difference. I know there's fruits and everything, and I know there's different relationship. But the principle I'm trying to tell you is that your tithes and your honorings come first. The reason is your belief system. You don't want to be at conflict and at odds with your belief. That's the thing. If you don't believe, I can't help you in this one. But if you do, this is something you want to practice, because a lot of your spiritual needs come from your relationship with God. Okay? And I'm not saying whether you don't tithe or not, then God is just going to run away from you. But the reality is, it does actually put that relationship at peace. One, you are contributing to his kingdom, and you're also keeping that alive. Remember that your financial contribution, and the second thing also is where you put your money is where you are emotionally invested. So if it is something that is important to you, consider it going first. Jesus said the famous words, give back to Caesar what belongs to what is Caesar's, and then give to God, and to God what is God's. Okay, so taxes and tithes come first. These are Jesus's instructions. So why give to God? But remember the Lord your God. And sorry, we just had that one. This is Deuteronomy 18. Sorry, there's just been a few mishaps here today. Deuteronomy 18, actually, which relates this. Remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Sorry, this was just a misstep there. So the point there, and I say it again, that's actually Deuteronomy 18, not Matthew. Now, the point I think that is meant to be stated there is that when you look at your wealth, okay, I would say this, Stephanie, you
Mm-hmm.
give to those who can alter and take your wealth. Okay, let me tell you the truth. God and the government are the two institutions who can rip your whole wealth out of your hands legally. Okay, so you may want to be at peace with them. So that's why you don't mess around with those two parts. Okay, they can, because they have the authority. Spiritually, God is the one who has given you the gifts and the abilities to generate wealth and is actually the one protecting it. Secondly, the government has the legal capacity to come and confiscate your wealth. Okay? If you don't pay, if you toy around with them, the government can come just take your house. The government can take the property in your house. The government can take your freedom, which you utilize to work to make wealth. So give to them what belongs to them. Give to God what belongs to them. Give to God what belongs to Him. These are important principles to also preserve your capabilities of generating wealth consistently. It's not extortion. This is the reality of the system that you operate in. And the quicker you accept that, the quicker you understand that, the more peaceful your life becomes. So, especially if you're a believer, if you depend on your belief in God for the strength that you need and the energy that you need, you may want to be at peace with developing His kingdom. And those are the principles that He's put. He's put a rule there to do with money. The second thing is He also makes you tithe because He also wants you to connect you to something eternal. Remember that even at the baseline of budgeting is long-term thinking. So taxes and tithes. Now, people, the prescription of tithes is 10%. Beyond that, that's between you, the revelations, your pastors, those things. That's another story for you. I'm just telling you the basic principle that you are given there is so that the people who serve God and who actually play that part in society, which you are going to rely on. Here's what I want you to think about, Stephanie. Think about the
Mm-hmm.
church as an insurance policy. A time will come in your life when you need spiritual help. Okay? A time will come. And society, for it to manage itself properly, it needs spiritual help. So if the church is functional, and I'm talking about a proper church, not where somebody's just hustling the people. If it's functional, it plays a role in society where it counsels society, okay? Where it guides society. So the very peace you're looking for in society comes from a functioning church because it then is able to guide the members of society to act properly. Very strong families also are connected to churches because they guide these people on how to build strong families and to raise good children. Bad children being raised out is what is often tied to criminality of the future. Okay. So the very safety that you want to, that you need, that you require to operate also hinges on a functioning church. Functioning religious institutions help preserve societies and help prosper societies through growth. If you read Ray Dalio's book, the cycle of how the cycle, the principles of how empires are built, he talks about this. Even he did it in a 1 hour presentation. If you want to watch it on YouTube as well, he did a 1 hour presentation saying at the beginning of any society are strong education systems, strong families, and strong religion. Okay. So for the
Mm-hmm.
development of a society to continue growing, it does need a strong religious system. And God has put in place a simple system to say tithe 10% to keep and sustain the religious systems going. Because they're needed in society for the very peace and development that you need to operate in a peaceful economy. Because you cannot prosper where there is no peace. Okay? And that is human development. Now, have the churches strayed from their mission? Sure, plenty of them have. Okay? But there's still plenty that do a lot of good, hard, honest work today. And that's the purpose of it. It's not our job to throw away the principle that actually holds them together. Okay, so quickly, Stephanie, when you're looking at budgeting, remember I said the next line is after you've paid your taxes and tithes, you've got money left over, save slow, smart, and steady. And here, three quick verses to help you understand that. Start saving smart. Now, I want you to listen to this verse very carefully. This is Proverbs 6 to 11. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander and no overseer and no ruler. yet it stores provisions in summer and gathers food at harvest. This is what you need to recognize. People often only start becoming financially astute and start talking about saving when they're broke. When that is not meant when you're meant to be saving. Store your provisions in summer. When you have lots of money and the money is flowing in, that is the time to save the highest. Just as Joseph told his brothers and his families, and even Pharaoh, when the harvest is happening, that is when we should be saving. Okay?
Mm.
Storing grain. So that when the drought comes, which life happens, it ebbs and it flows, you are prepared for it and you are able to grow through it. You're not disturbed by the bad times. You are able to. And in fact, what happened to Joseph, by the way, when he established that rule with Pharaoh, where they actually stored up a lot of grain into the grain storage, and they were able to distribute it during a time. Do you know that that's how the Egyptian government actually bought all the land from the people? It utilized that grain that was stored. In fact, most people who save, when economies crash, do you know that those are the people who actually acquire a lot of assets for nothing? Those are an economic crash is the cheapest time, Stephanie, for you to be able to purchase assets. But if you have no savings during the good times, tell me what are you going to purchase assets with during bad economic times when no banks are lending, but everything is cheap? When houses are going for a quarter of the price that they were going for, when that house that was going for 1 million kwacha is now going for 250,000 kwacha, and you know that that house is actually worth like 750, what are you going to buy it with if you weren't saving money during the good times? When the stock market
Mm.
assets are down to half of what they were, like they were in 2020, it was the people who had savings on the sidelines who were able to go into the stock market and start purchasing assets because they stored up provisions during the good times and the earlier times. And then they were able to, when the market economy crashed, to be able to pounce on those opportunities to start owning very high quality assets at very low prices. Okay. So if you want to be able to be in a position to execute windfalls, how did all these people get lucky? How did people buy companies for nothing? Because they utilized the savings they had when nobody was saving. Because during times of exuberance, Stephanie, what often happens is people spend too much. Everyone else is spending. If you're saving while people are spending, when things go cheap, you're the one who's going to be able to acquire assets very easily. And by the time the economy comes back, you're going to emerge much stronger than everyone else. So that is why save smart. Saving smart means saving during the good times, not during the bad times. If you're only saving when you're broke, and then first of all, you have no money to save. Secondly, you're saving during hard times. But if you're saving when things are going well, if you develop an acumen to just save when things are going well and to obviously save more aggressively when things are going very well, your asset acquisitions will become much stronger by the time that the bad times hit, because during economic downturns, that is when assets are easily available at the cheapest cost. Bonds have been cheap for the past decade, for the past 3 to 4 years, because that was an economic downturn. And it's the people who had been saving quite a bit of money who are now able to now start buying bonds at a cheaper price. Stocks were cheap, especially in 2019, 2020, because it was the people who had cash on the sidelines that were able to acquire those. Houses dropped in value drastically, and it's the people who had that money saved up who were able to do that. But they had to resist the urge to join the spending sprees that were happening before in 2017 and 2018 to be able to execute those savings in those times. Save smart. Okay? Because there are going to be opportunities that will come about. And if you don't have any firepower in your hands, you're not going to be able to execute them. Now, other part finally about saving smart and saving slow is save slow. Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gotten quickly, gotten through from get rich quick schemes dwindles, disappears quickly. Wealth from hard work grows over time. Another verse says, little by little shall ye gather plenty. Okay, so what you really want to do is start looking at always gathering steadily. So gather steadily. Okay, don't rush to try and do everything. There's a quote by Bill Gates where he says, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. So, what is your trajectory? Your monthly budget is nothing but a set of steps. Stephanie, if you want to get from here to, and I know where you are, if you want to get from there to the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, can you get there in one step? Or sorry,
Mm.
St. Ignatius, can you get there in one step?
No, I think it should take me 5 steps.
5 steps to get to St. Ignatius down the road from where you are.
That's
Take you
how
hundreds.
people do life anyway.
It will take you hundreds of steps to get to St. Ignatius. Okay?
Mm,
Your journey mostly in life takes you many steps. So every month you budget is a step. It's all about the direction and the consistency of the steps. What gets you to St. Ignatius is the consistency of the steps and the direction you are moving. That's all it is. Okay? So it'll take you time. It'll take you many months of executing a budget successfully for you to get to a financial destination. So slow and steady. Always put your journey as slow and steady. Things you want to do in 12 months, it has to be short-term emergencies. Getting out of debt, those are things you do in 12 months to 3 years. Okay? But things that you want to do over a period of time, get each wealth stage should take you about 5 years. Okay? Each stage of wealth you have to gradually put yourself that it'll take you 5 years. So orchestrate your savings and investing to move from one stage to another every 5 years. So where are you on your wealth journey? Are you at stability? Are you at security? Are you at self-reliance? Are you at self-determination? Where are you? Okay. Are you at solvency, stability, security, self-reliance, self-determination? Wherever you are, the next stage is 5 years away from you. Plan your budget according to that. Okay, it's a very simple way to look at it. Plan your budget according to that. That is the most consistent and stable thing that you'll be able to do. But obviously, you first have to have money to do that. So save smart. And then finally, Stephanie, in today's principles that we're going to be looking at is manage your risk. And the book of Proverbs. And by the way, people, if you want to really learn finance, the book of Proverbs really is your book of finance. Okay, Proverbs is like a master's in finance from school. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. Have insurance, people. You know that you're going to get sick. Okay? So if you go back to that thing I put here, have your basic insurance outline. You know that you're going to get sick. You know these things can happen. You know that there's going to be a flu every season. You know this. But you've convinced yourself that you can do without flu medication, or you convince yourself that when I get sick is when I'll sort it out. What if the time you get sick is when you have no money? Okay. So you know here that I've put here things such as essential spending and insurance. You will suffer for it if you do not have these things. Okay. If you do not have health, you do not have life, you do not have disability. When your car breaks down, you have no car insurance. When your property is stolen, you have no property insurance. I know homeowners, Stephanie, who do not have home insurance. And I keep asking them, how much money did you put into your house? They'll say, oh, I put X amount of money. I've spent about 500,000 into my house, and my house is a value of 1 million on my budget, on my balance sheet. So I'm saying, if your house goes on fire tomorrow, what's going to happen to your balance sheet? You're going to lose 500,000 to a million kwacha in wealth, poof, like that, because you refuse to pay an insurance premium of 1% on that. You refuse to pay insurance, and then you get spooked when you all of a sudden your whole value of your wealth vanishes. Okay, it happens to how many of these marketeers, unfortunately, at the contembers in the markets when those market fires happen. Think about how much inventory and everything they lose. They've got no insurance. So when there's no insurance for the things that you are sitting on your balance sheet or the things you generate money from, you will suffer for it one day. Okay,
mm,
that is the reality of life. That's where I just want to leave it today. I'm going to talk more about consumption. I'm going to talk about debt, consumption, and generosity. Those are three principled areas that are coming after this. But this is the essentials part of your budgeting. So we've dealt with where money comes from. We've dealt with the fact that you must budget. We've dealt with the fact that you must save. We've dealt with the fact that you must also manage your risk. These are the basic areas that we've been looking at in terms of principles of budgeting. We're going to be talking about principles of consumption. We're going to be talking about principles of debt management, and then we're also going to be talking about principles of generosity. And these are the areas you want to structure, automate, so that you can run your budget like a system, because your budget is a financial system. That's what it is. Okay, it's an information system that you track to see the progress, but it's a financial system that you execute to get you to your needs. It is a vehicle. The budget is the car that you need, okay, to get you to where you need to go. All right. So that is where I'll leave it. I know there's some comments which we have here. I just want to quickly recognize some of these people. Thank you, Priscilla, for joining us. Have a very blessed Sunday too. We've got another one who's sorry, we just got you as Facebook user. Great Gems, you are welcome. Francis Kaunda is saying this is informative. Thank you very much. You are welcome. And we've got Priscilla Sakala saying glued, enjoying this. And Priscilla Zulu has said this is interesting. Spending plans versus budgets. Yes. A budget includes how you are saving your money, how you are spending your money, and most importantly, how you're actually making it. Okay? Because that determines your ability to save and spend. You can't spend and save from what you don't make, otherwise, you're going into debt. In fact, that is exactly how people go into debt. They spend what they don't have, or they pretend to save what they don't have. So, first, create money, and then what you want to do is then allocate it. So, it is nothing but, I'll put this again, it's a resource allocation system. Okay? That is what your budget is. RAS, if you want to call it that, a resource allocation system that you implement to get you to the destination that you're going to, and also to develop the lifestyle you want, you desire. And I'll leave that there, Steph.
I've taken quite a number of points from today. There's got to be a source where you actually draw your money from. You have to work. Differentiate your budget from your spending plan, and you will be good to go. And also remember to take small steps as you will get there. Those are my takeaways, Munyumba, for today. Unless you've got anything else to add on, I think we can end it here.
We can. And thank you very much to everyone. Have a wonderful and blessed day. To you, Stephanie. Have a blessed Sunday.
Thank you. This has been